Thank you for watching. My name's Glen Morgan, and welcome to another episode of We the Governed. Now, today we're going to be getting into a topic that I've actually discussed in various forms over the years, quite a while. And the topic today is going to be the primary question: can the Evergreen State College, located in Thurston County where I live, could it be shut down forever by citizens' initiative in Washington State? Now, this is more than just a theoretical exercise. We actually have an initiative that has been proposed that does just that, and I want to talk about it here. As anybody who's paid any attention to some of my writings in the past, Evergreen State College has been a topic that I brought up at times, and it's certainly a place in Washington State that deserves a lot more attention from those of us who actually care about reforming public education. Now, just in case you haven't done so already, just want to do a quick reminder here to please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below if you haven't done so already. The more you like these videos, make comments down below, or share them with others, the higher the visibility in the video becomes, and the more people begin to find our videos, and the more it terrorizes big government and the corrupt people that we have who run it. So let's get into this story here a little bit more. Now, you have to kind of go into some of the background. I live in Thurston County. This is the home of the Evergreen State College, an experimental school that Washington State put in. They call it a college for some reason, but it really is very experimental, no grades. Students get stuck there for a long time, paying a lot of money to get a very low-value degree, and most of them end up going to work in government because they're really not employable in most cases. Not necessarily their own fault, but certainly they get that way after they've been there too long. One of the first times that I was trying to look at the problem of Evergreen State College and figure out how to do a solution was this article that I wrote back in January of 2019, basically saying, hey, let's just turn this college into an addict homeless camp for and actually make it useful and turn into a real solution for Washington State's homeless problems. I also helpfully provided a new logo design, which I was willing to give to them for free, and they can use anytime they want. If you actually look at this logo, I added a lot of helpful features like the blue tarp scene, which is very common throughout the city of Olympia and in surrounding areas where they have homeless camps. Barrels to burn the garbage, just as a way to kind of clean up and make things, at least recycle that garbage into some kind of heat. And of course, changing the evergreen tree logo that is part of the regular logo and turning that into a needle tree based on all the needles that are spread all over the community and on our walking trails all over Washington State now. For some reason so far, they have not taken me up on that. Now, once COVID kicked in and we had the drama of COVID, I also pointed out that the Evergreen State College would be a very effective place for a coronavirus quarantine site. After all, they got those nice concrete buildings, and just look at the type of people that you'd probably get a chance to be interned with there. They didn't take me up on that one either. But I will point out that, of course, over the last number of years, especially since 2017, the student enrollment at Evergreen State College collapsed about 50%. The expenses and cost of going there, of course, increased dramatically. The bureaucracy was increased substantially despite 4 rounds of staff layoffs earlier, and it's not exactly the healthiest school in the state. And of course, the Evergreen State College has continued to spiral downwards. I've done a number of videos in the past. It's not been something I do a regular video on all the time, but it's certainly been worth looking at when we look at the history of Evergreen State College. It also doesn't help that Evergreen State College has been particularly horrific in how they've managed their facilities, and this has resulted in student deaths. More specifically, the carbon monoxide alarms that were going off regularly, and when the students would evacuate, the administration just sent them right back in until finally many of them got sick and then somebody died. That's not good for your health, even at Evergreen State College, and although that may be par for the course in how they approach the real world, it's not the kind of thing that most of us want to actually see out there in the real world. It's super dangerous to be a student at Evergreen State College. And that example in that recent story, tragic story, unfortunately, is one of the things that has drawn more attention to the school over the years. But of course, it's not just that. Evergreen State College has been ranked frequently as one of the worst colleges in America for free speech. This is something they appear to be very proud of, suppressing free speech. It doesn't help that many people who graduate from Evergreen State College end up writing tell-all stories or articles about what I didn't learn at the Evergreen State College, and hint, it ends up being a lot, not just math, not just reality, but all kinds of things they didn't learn there. And of course, it doesn't help, even like last week, the fact that there's a class action lawsuit now where Evergreen State College had the data breach where they released all the private information of students and former students had been in there. And of course, now it's a lawsuit and investigation to see just how bad that is and the ID theft problems that are going to result from it. And of course, I did do a video actually a little while ago of how Donald Trump could shut down Evergreen State College if he chooses to do so. And certainly no college deserves to be shut down quicker and more efficiently than Evergreen State College, really just as efficient and quick as we can get there. But of course, no matter what you do, this has been a dumpster fire of a college for a long time, and eventually we're just going to have to come up with some kind of a solution for it, which does bring us back to the question about, is it possible for the Evergreen State College to actually be shut down forever by a citizens initiative? And one of the reasons why I brought this up is that there actually has been an initiative that's been proposed to do just that. And this initiative draft that was sent in, actually I'm just going to attach it over here, and the code reviser came back with this version right here down below. And I'll link to this down in the video if you're interested, because I think this is just a fascinating thing from just a political science standpoint and digging into the details of what this would actually look like. And this initiative was actually filed by an attorney named Joel Ard, Washington State attorney, and it's a very simple initiative. It really just consists of three parts. The most significant part is just the intent part. And I'll read it to you here just so you get a flavor of what this actually looks like. And it says, Evergreen State College is an embarrassment to the state of Washington. It rose to national prominence for the worst imaginable reasons when in 2017, the college administration allowed students to engage in mob violence, insult professors, threaten and engage in violence and property damage, with the college president ultimately debasing himself by apologizing to the rioters instead of having them arrested. Its academic focus has been diverted from learning to preaching victimhood based on categories developed by junk social science of the early 21st century. Nothing of value will be lost by its demise. And that would be basically what you would read as the intent section on the back of the signature sheets for an initiative, if this is what we used to shut down Evergreen State College here in the state. Now, ultimately, when you look at this, there are clear benefits to eliminating Evergreen State College. And all it requires them to do is essentially eliminate the enabling statute in Washington state law that invented and created the college back in I believe it was the late 60s when they started. Now, basically, you would be saving student lives. Not just from CO2 poisoning, but from whatever other facilities collapse and poor management of this college would produce in the future. And saving student lives, I think, would be certainly a justified reason to shut down the college and prevent it from going forward and killing any more students. You'd also save more students from the ID theft, as the data breach, recent data breach and the historic data breaches of Evergreen State College information seems to be a common problem. And you would keep these students out of perpetual, very expensive, life-destroying debt for a degree that actually destroys their future hiring prospects. Washington State, this is another benefit, this would mean a lot to me as well, is that Washington State will save a lot of money. We don't need to squander money on a losing college that's required a lot of subsidies over the years just to keep it afloat, and there's no reason to continue to do that. Washington State's in a tough financial position as it is, and this is just one more college that we just don't need to have anymore. And it was a nice concept at the time, but it was basically it was an educational experiment that failed. Also, you would have this bonus beautiful 1,000-acre campus that could be easily repurposed for one of many other things. It doesn't just have to be a homeless camp or a drug rehab facility. There's all kinds of ways that this campus, which is largely built out of concrete. I mean, these buildings are pretty durable. So getting this campus repurposed to something productive instead of destructive, which is all we see there today, could really be an interesting change in the community. Now, there's a downside, and there's a clear downside that needs to be pointed out here. Whatever students are caught up, unfortunately, in their 7th or 8th year being here, or they're somewhere in this nebulous, undefined pre-graduation window, many of them will probably have to have some type of tutoring before before they can be transferred to other community colleges or be able to move on to a place where they might be able to get a real education. That's going to take some work, some thought, and some real careful consideration, and it's going to be a bit of work to be able to do that. Now, the big question, of course, that pops up is, could this actually be done? Could it really work? Well, I believe it could, but I just want to point out that you never know until you try, and I like this proposal from Attorney Joel Ard, and it was a very simple, one of the simplest initiative designs I've ever seen, and it's one that looks like it could really be very popular, especially if this is tried next year. Now, the question is, and I throw this question out to you, one of my viewers, because usually I end this with a to-do list at the end, and in this video, I'm going to basically be closing it with a couple of suggestions that I have for you to use the comment section down below to help extrapolate on the interest that you might have in basically explaining how you would make improvements to downsize government yourself. Because getting rid of Evergreen State College, it certainly isn't the only one that could exist out there and make the world a better place. But the question is, what would be the process you would go through to do that downsizing? You could have an imagination where you had a real governor, not like the one we have now, who actually does want to fix government. And what would they do? What could they do as governor? What could we do if we had sane people, in a majority of them anyway, in the state house and senate? What could they do? Or perhaps it would be an initiative like the one that I just referenced in this video. Leave your suggestions in the comment section down below. I'm very curious and interested in what you have to say. I do read most of those comments and respond to them, as you can see from past videos that I have, and I am interested in what you have to say about it out there, because I think a lot of times this is just crowdsourcing government reform. We know that the bureaucrats and the political class that's there now absolutely won't reform anything, and we're going to need a lot of help. They're going to need a lot of help to get that reform in the future, and the downward spiral can't go on forever. Eventually they crash into the ground. So we need to be there to pick up the pieces, clean up the mess, and have better solutions moving forward. So I'm interested in what some of your suggestions would be, and I hope you enjoyed the suggestion that I detailed here. Now, regardless of whatever our solutions to the current problems that we may have in Washington State or the state where you live, if it's different than Washington, I am interested in hearing what you have to say. But regardless of what the solutions are, though, it does require us to be more engaged and involved. We have to get out there and do something to make this happen. We have to be willing to show up to make things like this happen. Because, as I always say, the future belongs to those who show up.